I was called selfish after I paid their mortgage. I was called useless after I gave up my dream school so my sister could clear her debt. At a dinner meant to honor my parents' 40 years of marriage, my sister raised her glass and said, "How does it feel, Sam, being the only one here with no husband, no kids, and a job no one understands?" Laughter exploded around the table. Even my father chuckled. Even my mother looked away. And that's when I realized they had no idea who they were laughing at. So I stood up and said 12 words that would burn their perfect little world to the ground. How does it feel when the useless one stops paying your mortgage? My name is Samantha Rayner. I'm 32, a financial consultant living in Madison, Wisconsin. Single, no kids, just me and the spreadsheets I've mastered like an art. For the most part, I've lived my life quietly, fixing problems behind the scenes, especially for my family. They never noticed, until the night they pushed too far. It was supposed to be a celebration, my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. A big, noisy family dinner at the country club my dad loved so much. Cousins flew in, champagne flowed, and everyone dressed like we were royalty. I'd flown in straight from a client meeting, exhausted, but present, like always. Then came the moment that would split my life in two. Emily, my older sister, stood at the head of the table, drink in hand, laughter too loud. She looked around, grinning like a queen on her throne. "So, Sam," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter, "how does it feel to be the only one here with no husband, no kids, and a job no one really gets?" The table burst into laughter. Even my dad chuckled. Even my mom smiled nervously. My stomach nodded. It wasn't the first time she said something like that, but this time something snapped. I leaned forward, looked her square in the eyes. My voice came out low, steady. "How does it feel," I asked, "when this so-called useless job stops paying your mortgage?" Silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Emily's smirk fell off her face like a mask melting. Her husband's fork froze midair. My mother's smile vanished. My father cleared his throat but said nothing. Emily blinked. "What?" she said, eyes darting. "What are you talking about?" I stood slowly. My chair scraped back, loud against the polished floor. "Let's be clear," I said. "The last 10 years, I've been the one covering your car repairs, your utility bills, and yes, the monthly payment on your fancy 3-bedroom in Fitchburg." Murmurs stirred. My cousin Olivia's mouth hung open. My uncle looked away, suddenly fascinated by his napkin. Emily stammered, "You're just trying to embarrass me. This isn't the time." "No, Emily, this is the perfect time. You've had your fun. Now it's my turn." I turned and walked out. The heels of my boots echoed with each step, the sound of a woman who had finally had enough. As I stepped into the cool Wisconsin night, something inside me shifted. I had carried them for so long, their debts, their needs, their blind admiration for Emily, while I was just background noise. That night I decided, if they wouldn't recognize what I'd done, then maybe they needed to feel what happened when I stopped doing it. Because I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was done being invisible. And they were about to find out who I really was. I was 15 when I first realized that in our house, love had terms. It came in quiet nods, in bills paid late, in things left unsaid. And I was the quiet one who noticed everything and said nothing. It was winter. Power had been shut off for 2 nights. My mother lit candles like it was some nostalgic tradition, but I knew the truth. I heard her crying in the laundry room. I heard my father whisper, "We're already behind on January." Emily, of course, was too busy talking about her high school formal and the dress she had to have. Me? I was stocking shelves at the corner mini-mart on weekends, smelled like gasoline and regret. I was 15, and already calculating kilowatts and cost per gallon. That Friday, I took the 68 crumpled dollars from my pocket, added it to the money I'd saved in a shoebox, and left $180 in an envelope on the kitchen table. Just a note for the electric. No one asked. The lights came back on. And Emily? She got new snow boots that weekend, blue with the fur lining, showed them off at school like Christmas came early. That moment set the pattern. At 17, Dad's truck broke down, transmission shot. It sat in the driveway like a wounded animal. He paced, grumbling about work, missed shifts. I'd saved $400 that spring working double hours at the gas station. I gave it to him quietly. He said, "You're dependable, Sam," and patted me on the head like I was a Labrador. That was it. No thank you, no payback, just expectation. And then came 18. I had dreams too. NYU had offered me a partial scholarship. New York, the city lights, the skyscrapers, the life I pictured when I stared at my bedroom ceiling. But Emily? She'd racked up over $6,000 in credit card debt after dropping out of a private college she couldn't afford. My parents were panicking. Mom sat across from me one night, voice cracking as she said, maybe you stay close to home just for a while? I said yes. I didn't ask for anything in return. I turned down NYU, enrolled at Madison Community College, and handed over $4,200, my entire savings, to clean up Emily's mess. No ceremony, no mention. Emily never even said thank you. She breezed through the house, laughing about her latest boyfriend while I worked 2 jobs, calculating if I could afford my next textbook. I still have that memory. Her at the dinner table, twirling her spaghetti and talking about a weekend trip to Chicago. While I skipped lunch to buy printer ink. Every year it continued. Car insurance for mom, groceries when the SNAP ran out, a new backpack for Emily's daughter. I was the family's safety net, but no one ever looked down to see who was catching them. To them, I was just Samantha, the responsible one, the one who handled things. And when things were running smoothly, they forgot I existed. I told myself it was love. But deep down, I started keeping a spreadsheet, a real one, every dollar, every sacrifice, not out of resentment, but as proof. Because I knew one day I'd need to remember that I wasn't crazy, that I did give, that I did matter. And maybe, just maybe, one day, they'd see it too. It was 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday. I remember because I'd just made tea and opened my laptop to finalize a budget proposal for a new fintech client. The kind of night I'd had 100 times. Quiet, focused, deliberate. Then my phone buzzed. Emily. I stared at the screen for a second. Late night calls from her were rarely casual. They always came wrapped in urgency, and usually a request. I picked up. Hey Sam, she said, voice bright and rehearsed. How's my favorite money wizard? My stomach twisted. Working, I replied, cautious. She didn't waste time. So listen, big news. The boutique's finally turning a corner. We're blowing up online, but to meet demand, I need to expand inventory. Fast. She paused, letting it hang. I need 60,000. I didn't even blink. 60,000, I repeated. Just a short-term investment, she chirped. You know, sister to sister. You can write something up. You always have those smart little contracts, right? I felt my jaw tighten. Emily, that's a lot of money. Oh, come on, she said, laughing. You sit in front of a computer all day shuffling numbers. You're not exactly saving lives. That line landed like a slap. I'd spent years building a solid career from scratch, working with startups, managing risk portfolios, helping small businesses stay afloat. But to her, it was just sitting. You have no idea what I do, I said flatly. Silence. Then she snapped. You're so selfish, Samantha. Seriously. You hoard your little paychecks while the rest of us hustle. You think you're better than everyone. You always have. That word again, selfish. The irony nearly made me laugh. Selfish? I had turned down scholarships, paid off credit card debt that wasn't mine, covered bills I never created, and I'd never asked for anything back. You don't know what I've done for this family, I said, my voice shaking. Not with fear, but with restraint. She scoffed. Yeah? Then maybe stop acting like a martyr and just say no. And she hung up. Just like that. I sat there staring at the screen, tea gone cold, cursor blinking in the document I could no longer focus on. That night I opened a folder on my desktop titled Family. Inside were years of records, transfers, receipts, contracts. I did the math. Over 10 years I had given them $121,400 in rent payments, groceries, tuition, loans, business bailouts, and not once had I been thanked. Not once had someone looked me in the eye and said, "We couldn't have done this without you." Instead, I was selfish. Instead, I was the one sitting at a computer doing nothing. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't vent, I just stopped. I logged into my banking app and canceled the automatic transfer I'd been making to Emily's business account. $2,000 every month, gone now. Let her feel the silence I've carried for years. Let her stand where I've stood, in the background holding everything up and being called invisible. I shut my laptop, blew out the candle, and for the first time in a long time, I slept with my chest unburdened. I thought silence would be the worst part, but I was wrong. 3 days after I canceled the monthly transfer, I got a text from Emily. Hey, did the payment not go through? System glitch? I didn't respond. Then came the second one. Suppliers are calling, this isn't funny, Sam. Then voicemail, 4 minutes of her panic, rising, snapping, then begging, before it ended with, fix this, Samantha, I'm not kidding. I was still staring at that voicemail when my apartment buzzer rang. I froze. Then came her voice over the intercom, sharp and cracked. Open up, now! And behind her, unmistakable, my father's voice. Samantha, let her in. I didn't move at first. I didn't want this confrontation, not tonight, not like this. But something inside me clicked. A part of me that had always retreated stood up. I buzzed the door. They walked in like a storm, Emily red-faced, arms crossed, and Dad silent but stewing, his shoulders stiff like coiled wire. You cut me off? Emily snapped. Are you serious right now? I leaned against the kitchen counter, calm on the outside, boiling on the inside. I stopped funding your business, yes. She threw her hands in the air. The boutique is crumbling. Suppliers are threatening to walk. Rent's due. Inventory's stuck at customs. You've got to fix this. I raised my eyebrows. No, Emily, I've been fixing this for years, quietly, silently, but I'm not doing it anymore. My dad stepped forward. Samantha, this isn't about ego. You've always helped family. We need you to do that now. His voice, the one I used to crave comfort from, now felt like a weight. I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder, thick, heavy, filled with every proof of sacrifice they refused to remember. I dropped it on the coffee table. Emily blinked. Dad frowned. What is this? She asked, already knowing. Proof, I said flat. Bank transfers, emails, contracts, and this. I flipped to the page. 2017. Your store was 6 weeks from bankruptcy. I invested $48,000, negotiated with creditors, rewrote your loan terms. In return, you signed over 62% ownership to me. Emily staggered a step back. You're lying. Check your signature. Dad grabbed the page. His face didn't move, just his jaw, tightening. You never told us, he muttered. You never asked, I said. Emily crossed her arms. You're pathetic. Holding this over me? You don't even use your stake. I looked her dead in the eye. I used it to keep you afloat. You just never noticed. Dad's voice grew louder. You don't throw this in our face. You're tearing this family apart. I snapped. No, Dad, I've held this family together, and I'm tired. The room went quiet. Emily stared at the folder like it might bite her. My dad just stood there, not arguing, not apologizing, just stunned. I pointed to the door. You came here to demand more. You're not getting it. You can leave now. They didn't speak. They left. The door clicked behind them. And for the first time, I didn't feel empty. I felt power, not the kind that shouts, the kind that rises quietly, after years of being walked over. That night, I didn't just close a door on Emily. I closed it on every version of me that thought being quiet meant being kind. I wasn't invisible anymore. 10 days after they stormed out of my apartment, the envelope arrived. Heavy cream cardstock, no return address, just my name typed in stiff black letters. Inside, a letter from Emily's attorney. She was suing me. Fraudulent inducement. She claimed I had manipulated her into signing the 2017 contract. Claimed I used emotional coercion to gain majority ownership of her business. Claimed I took advantage of her limited understanding of finance. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I got angry. Because that wasn't just a legal move, it was an erasure, a rewriting of history. Of every sleepless night, every bank negotiation, every dollar I'd poured into saving her boutique from collapse. She wasn't just trying to get her business back. She was trying to make it look like I never helped her at all. I called my lawyer, Elena Marsh, a woman known for her steel spine and unflinching logic. I sent her every document, every contract, every bank transfer, every email. She called me back that same afternoon. She has no case, Elena said, flipping through the PDFs. This is a bluff, but it's a loud one. A bluff meant to bankrupt me with legal fees, I replied. Maybe, she said, but we won't let it. We filed our response within 48 hours. We cited the 2017 contract, signed, notarized, crystal clear. We attached a timeline of my investments, receipts of debt payments, even screenshots of texts from Emily asking for help. But still, the court date loomed. The weeks leading up to it were brutal. I barely slept. My work suffered. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. Every dream I had ended in courtrooms and screaming. My mother texted once, "This fight is tearing the family apart. Please be the bigger person." The bigger person. I'd been the bigger person my whole life. I ignored it. Then the day came, a gray Tuesday morning in Dane County Civil Court. Emily arrived in heels and indignation. Her lawyer smirked like he was auditioning for television. I sat beside Elena, silent but steady. They claimed I used undue influence, that Emily was emotionally vulnerable at the time of signing, that she had never understood she was giving up control. Elena stood sharp as a blade. My client saved Miss Rayner's business. She invested $48,000. She renegotiated debt with 4 vendors. She structured the business to survive. And this, Elena held up the contract, was her collateral. She walked the judge through every payment, every signed form, every receipt. The courtroom was quiet when the judge finally spoke. The court finds the 2017 agreement legally valid. The claim of fraudulent inducement is dismissed. I exhaled. Emily didn't look at me. She stood, adjusted her coat, and walked out like she hadn't just tried to burn me to the ground. Outside the courthouse, Elena shook my hand. You did the hard thing, she said. You stood your ground. I nodded, too tired to speak. But inside, something had shifted. This wasn't just about shares. This was about truth. About finally standing in the light and saying, I was there, I mattered, and you can't erase me. even if they never said thank you, even if they never saw me. They couldn't pretend anymore that I didn't exist. 3 months after the courtroom ruling, I got an email from a name I didn't recognize. Subject line, Invitation to Speak, Women Rising Conference. I nearly deleted it, but something stopped me. The message came from a coordinator with a nonprofit that supports women rebuilding after financial trauma. She'd heard about my story, not the lawsuit, not the drama, but the stand I took. They were hosting a weekend event in Milwaukee. She wrote, "We're looking for stories of quiet strength, of boundary setting, of choosing yourself." My first instinct, say no. I wasn't a speaker, I wasn't polished or inspiring, I was just someone who'd spent too many years apologizing for being tired, for being drained, for giving everything away and still being told it wasn't enough. But then I remembered something. I had already survived the hardest part, being invisible. Saying yes wasn't nearly as scary as staying silent, so I accepted. I spent 2 weeks writing my speech, then rewriting it, then tearing it up and starting over. How do you explain 10 years of sacrifice without sounding bitter? How do you describe a family that loved conditionally without villainizing them completely? How do you tell the truth without breaking? On the day of the conference, I stood behind the curtain, my heart hammering like I was walking back into court. My hands shook, my voice felt small. But when I stepped on stage, something shifted. The lights were soft, the room was quiet, just 100 women, and me. I looked up and began. For years, I believed love meant giving until I was empty. I believed that being the strong one, the reliable one, meant staying silent. That being kind meant never saying enough. I paid bills that weren't mine, covered debts I didn't create, skipped my dreams so someone else could chase theirs, and all the while I smiled, I nodded, I stayed small. Until one day I realized I wasn't kind, I was disappearing. I saw faces nodding, some crying, some just still, painfully still, like they were hearing their own thoughts spoken out loud for the first time. Saying no didn't make me cruel. Setting a boundary didn't make me selfish. It made me visible. When I finished, the applause didn't come like thunder. It came like rain, steady, cleansing, real. Afterward, a woman maybe 10 years older than me approached. Her voice shook when she said, "Thank you. You said what I've never dared say out loud. I thought it was just me." We hugged, we cried, we didn't need to say much else. Because that moment, that was the healing. It wasn't the court victory, it wasn't winning the argument. It was knowing that my pain had turned into someone else's permission, that my silence had finally found its voice. And that voice? It was mine. 4 months after the conference, the silence from my family had become routine. No calls, no texts, no surprise knocks at the door. And strangely, I didn't miss it. My father hadn't spoken to me since the lawsuit. My mother sent one final message. "I miss you. Please fix this before it's too late." But I didn't reply. Because for once in my life, I understood something. Fixing it wasn't my job anymore. I'd spent years trying to hold everyone together, patching holes, covering debts, sacrificing dreams so they didn't have to. And in return, I was called selfish for finally wanting something of my own. So I stopped answering, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Instead, I started showing up somewhere new, in my own life. I joined a local art group, bought paintbrushes for the first time in 12 years. My hands were shaky at first, lines crooked, colors clashed, but it didn't matter. I wasn't painting for praise, I was painting because it made me feel present. I started walking every morning along Lake Monona, coffee in hand, scarf tucked into my coat. Watching the sun rise over the frozen shoreline felt like my own quiet revolution. No one needed anything from me, and that was freedom. I started working with the nonprofit that hosted the conference. We launched a micro-grant program for women rebuilding after financial abuse. I offered budget coaching once a week, helping women like me, women who had been told family comes first, until they had nothing left for themselves. And in the middle of that, something beautiful happened. I stopped feeling guilty for wanting peace. I stopped explaining myself to people who never listened. I stopped shrinking in rooms where I belonged. I began building a life where I didn't have to apologize for being strong or for being tired. One afternoon, while preparing grant packets at the nonprofit's office, one of the coordinators looked at me and said, "You know, you've got a real gift for rebuilding things." I smiled. But this time, I didn't think about the store I saved or the bills I paid or the silence I carried. I thought about me. I was what I had rebuilt. Not a house, not a business, but a woman who finally knew her worth. I went home that evening, lit a candle on my windowsill, and sat on the floor with a canvas in my lap. Outside, the world buzzed. Somewhere in the distance, the Rayner family name was still passed around dinner tables, maybe even with my name attached to it. But I was no longer waiting for their recognition. No longer hoping they'd look up and say, "We see you now." I saw me. And that was enough. I painted until midnight, nothing fancy, just bold brushstrokes, bright blues and gold, a quiet rebellion in acrylic. When I finally lay down to sleep, I didn't make a mental checklist of who needed what from me tomorrow. I just rested. And in that stillness, I realized something no lawsuit or apology could give me. I had claimed my life back. Not the version they wanted. Not the version that made everyone comfortable, but the one that let me breathe. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't surviving. I was living. Some stories don't end with apologies. Some families never say thank you. And sometimes, walking away is the only way to return to yourself. Samantha didn't win by proving her worth to them. She won the day she stopped asking for permission to matter. So if you've ever been the one who held it all together, the quiet one, the fixer, the giver, let this be your reminder. You don't have to keep proving your value to people who never saw you. You are enough, even when you stop saving everyone else. And maybe the most powerful thing you'll ever say is, no more.